Hello, everybody.
What up? What up? What up?
My name is Tim Daniel. His name is Ben Brown. And welcome to this week's edition of Late Night Reds, brought to you by the Riverfront. And of course, as always, our good friends at SeatGeek. So, you know how this works. Obviously, you go to your SeatGeek, you're like, man, maybe I'll go catch the Reds in this last homestand they have coming up. Get some tickets. Never fear, the Riverfront's got you. Use code Riverfront for $20 off your first SeatGeek order, and we will go ahead and get you squared away for those Pirates games when you know the Reds are going to sweep the Pirates to end the season on the high note of GABP. Starting with today, of course. When hey Ben, there was a team in Cincinnati that put 7 on the board, and it wasn't the football team.
And it was not the Bengals.
No, it was not.
It was good to see, man. It was really good to see our offense come alive again, and led by two guys that people are questioning if they should be here, if they shouldn't be here. Led by guys that have been constant leaders for this team kind of all year. So it was good to see India and JVD back, especially on his 4-0.
Yeah, absolutely. Which we're going to talk about that throughout the year. About half hour into the show, we're going to be joined by former Cincinnati Red Drew Stubbs coming back on the show for a Q&A. We don't have a whole lot of people in the chat right now, so hopefully we have some people hop in with some questions. But I did get some from our Patreon subscribers, which you can be one of those if you go to patreon.com/frontcincy. And for as little as $2.99 a month, you can be a member of the Lee Salverto Bonilla coverage of the Late Night Reds of the Riverfront Patreon. So pretty awesome. Branch Brown in the building. What up, Branch? Yeah, absolutely. What a great win. Branch, what are we cooking tonight? Are you doing another fried Pop-Tart, or what was it you said you did? Was it a Pop-Tart covered in butter that you fried? Like, it sounded amazing, whatever it was. And like 4,000 calories, but I'll try it.
Who's counting, man? Who's counting?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Calorie schmallery. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Before we do talk about the Cardinal series, what up, Sydney? Saw Sydney all weekend. It was nice. Yes. It was really nice. Want to go ahead real quick before we do get into anything as far as on the field. We got to say on behalf of me and Ben, on behalf of Nate and Chad, on behalf of Joe, unfortunately Greg had car trouble, so he couldn't make it up. Thank you guys so much for what was like an unbelievably fun weekend with you all. I know, they do lose 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals, but getting to hang out with everybody, put names to faces of people who are like, whether they're in the chat or they're on the Patreon group, coming up saying hi to us, coming to the show, man, it was so cool. And I know we had some technical problems yesterday as far as the YouTube portion of it, but everything in-house worked just fine. Shout out Dwight Kelly for holding us down on the 1s and 2s. But man, just an awesome weekend to hang out with the Riverfront Patreon family.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's really cool to be able to see, like you said, and put faces to names, and people were able to hang out. We were able to enjoy the time at the stretch, man. The people at the stretch were awesome.
They were great.
They were awesome. The crowd there was awesome. It was just awesome to be in that area, in that room, with people that enjoy the same things you enjoy. So it was a lot of fun, and just can't thank everybody that attended, everybody that listened, everybody that came, man. We can't thank you enough for your support, and thank you enough for just being there with us for this really cool experience.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. Getting there early, even we had people already waiting for us, and so we were setting up. Like I said, shout out to man Dwight Kelly for keeping us together yesterday.
Awesome.
Did such a great job. We are very, very grateful for him. And then we all hung out on the Budweiser stacks last night. Had a couple beers. Talked about the Reds. Saw Alejo Lopez get ejected. That was the funniest thing of all time. I just, seeing this like little man get super irritated, and when he yells, his body moves. He's one of those guys. You know, in Kazam, when that kid's charging at Shaq, he just does this and like
And he
holds his
just does
head.
it.
Yeah. By the way, if anyone's keeping tabs at home, no one else would have a Kazam reference on their bingo card for late night Reds, but
No,
never fear.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Absolutely not. But yeah, that was fun. Friday night, not so much fun of a game, but they obviously had a great time. And again, thank you guys so much. I know Scott that just popped in was there. He said what's up. I know Branch hung out in the YouTube chat, said hey to us all. So that was pretty cool. Um, dude, let's talk a little bit about the series. So again,
Mhm,
let's go to the preface. I know you go back and watch, but Friday, I know you were coaching high school football.
mhm.
So it was a little odd there, but we were like, "Oh, Andrew Abbott on the bump. We should be fine." Weren't fine. Weren't fine at all. Uh, Denzel didn't homer in that game, but other than that, not too much to
Not
talk about.
much. You're right,
Uh,
not much going on.
yeah, and then so we've got. Let me pull up the box again real quick. So this is like Nate and Chad get in town, and they're like, "We came in town to see Joey." And of course, Joey goes on the IL.
Mhm.
And everything kind of starts to splinter there. And it's like, oh, he might come back. He did not come back in that game.
No.
Wilson Contreras hit a 3-run bomb. That was not fun.
No.
Andrew Abbott goes 4 innings, 6 runs, 3 strikeouts. From there, the bullpen wasn't too bad the rest of the day. Fernando Cruz did
Yeah.
give up 2. TJ Antone gave up 1, but TJ Antone was allowed to give up 1. He's been tremendous.
Yeah.
But we go once again back to 0 of 7 with runners in scoring position in that game. They
Ugh.
lost by 5.
Ugh. Woof.
Yeah.
Woof.
And then yesterday, they lose 4-3. Not a bad game. They did.
Freaking Wilson Contreras again, though, dude. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
He needs to go away.
Yes. Awful.
Yeah. It was very much not fun. But you see David Bell get ejected.
Mhm.
I need to find a clip of Alejo Lopez just like screaming an ejection because it was so funny. I know I shouldn't say that. Like I know, but like, dude, like it was hot. It was so funny. Just seeing like his whole body move with him as he's like yelling. I dug it. But the calls were atrociously bad. Like, oh my god, they were so bad. Those high strikes, and so that
Yeah.
was not very fun. Then of course today they took care of business. Hunter Green came back, which we're going to get into that here in a second. But dude, what is it? Because this team is obviously on paper, and even with how bad they've played, since they got back from the All-Star break, realistically,
Mhm.
you look at them, you're like, St. Louis, they're better than St. Louis. I know St. Louis is Goldschmidt. I know they have Arenado, but you're like, they probably at this point who the Cardinals are should not have lost 2 out of 3.
No. Mm-mm. But there's some circumstances there, though. I mean, we're getting late in the season, and like you said, we got hit with the COVID list. We get 3 guys that are back today that contributed mightily to the game today. You get Marte gets hit in the face yesterday.
Yeah,
You
right before
lose
the game.
him. Like there's some circumstances there. We have a pitcher get called up from Double A. Like, I mean, we just had. I mean, there's just been some circumstances there where this Cardinal series, if we're at full strength, I feel a lot better than having to play them without India, without Votto, without Hunter Green at the beginning. Marte gets hurt. You're a pitcher. You call a pitcher from Double A who has to pitch in a big series with a team that's in a playoff run. I mean that normally doesn't happen.
Yeah, I agree. That was just kind of like that dynamic there was not very fun. But this is kind of, today was much needed. It was very relaxed. Let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive a little bit more into today. Let's start with Hunter Green today.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, doggy. Was that nice
Yes,
to
indeed.
see?
Man.
I think the most impressive part about Hunter Green's start today was at 3 2/3 innings pitched today, he had 86 pitches.
Mm-hmm.
He ended the game. When he left the game, he only had 109.
Which is nice.
So 2 2/3 innings on 23 pitches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, what was it, the fourth, the top of the fifth? He got the first two guys out in 3 pitches, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Obviously, walks and strikeouts play a part in that, but dude, he battled, and he looked. It's the best he's looked since his return from the IL.
Yep.
Obviously, and then obviously he was on the COVID list here. That's why he pitched this game, but you know, we all kind of project him to kind of be this potential ace of the future. I am very guilty of that. I fully believe in him for that. These are the games an ace wins for you, right? Things aren't going right. Everything's kind of falling apart. You need a game. You need a guy that you can count on to go out there and get you the big ones. That's exactly what you want from your ace to do, and he did just that.
Absolutely. And I know we talked about this when he came off the injured list, and he had that horrific game straight off the injured list, and people were like, "Oh, Hunter Green's lost it." Blah blah. Like when we talked about this, it's going to take him some time to get back into some kind of rhythm. This is the major leagues. You are going against major league batters. If you are not feeling at top of your game, those guys are going to get hits. They are major league players. So to see him come out today and battle 109 pitches off the COVID list, to see him battle, to see him go 6 strong innings, 9 strikeouts, 4 walks. I mean, I think, walks do haunt, but I think he was able to battle around those and pitch around those.
Yeah, he was.
So I think that watching him work those 6 innings and be able to really just get through those innings and grind through, that's what you want to see out of your ace. You just lost the first 2 games to the Cardinals, games that you weren't supposed to lose, games where you were shorthanded, and he comes back and he settles the ship. He rights the wrongs. He does everything, like you said, everything that you want from an ace. That's what he did today. He settled the Reds. He settled their lineup. Now, of course, you get 2 good bats back in your lineup, which, we'll talk about here in a minute. But he comes in, he's a settling force, and your bullpen is still turning the corner. I mean, Antone pitched well today. Diaz closes it out. I mean, it was a solid pitching performance all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those, and that's really what this team needed, just to kind of have that on their back. And I think that just went such a long way for Hunter. That's, I think you mentioned it, that first start post IL stint where he really struggled. Go back to the end of last year too, when he goes on the IL. He was very good, very, very good. There's still some stuff obviously that's a little irritating about him, and that's just because he's 23. I don't even know what age anymore. Very young. We're gonna go very young. I'm sure someone will tell me in the chat. But just a guy that you can count on, and a guy who's going to continue to learn and get better. And so he's 24. Okay, 24. Yeah. But
just turned 24 this past August 6th. I mean, he's a young 24.
Yeah, a very young 24 at that. So that's a great way to put it. But just really good. Let's talk about this real quick. I didn't put a slide together for this, but I meant to. Will Benson.
Willie Beeman.
Oh my goodness. There was a thing that popped up today that said 6 of his last 7 hits were for extra bases. He was on one this week.
Yes, he was. He was.
Dude, I mean, I know he's not a superstar. He is a problem. As our good friend yesterday, Jeff Carr, wore the shirt that said, Will Benson is a problem.
Yes, he is.
But this is this was what a stretch where they really have been so fun to watch him play. He's had to play multiple outfield positions, through all the weird stuff, with yesterday with Marte getting hurt and the cluster they had there. Nick Senzel gets moved to third base later in the game, so he's got to go take a spot. But Will Benson.
Yep.
Bro. Branch says it here. Will Benson's got his stroke going. That's no lies are told in that statement by good friend Branch Brown.
No, here's the thing, man, and Here's the thing that I like about Benson. Uh, He does this with like minimal, like he doesn't get consistent days playing.
Yeah.
Like so when you're not getting consistent days playing, it's hard to find a rhythm.
Yeah.
So he's doing this on spot duty, kind of. I mean, the guy's got an eight. Look at that. He's got an 871 OPS. He's batting 273, dude. He's got 15 home runs.
He's in the bottom
Like,
of the order.
and he's in the bottom of our order. Like, and he's doing it on spot duty. He's not playing every day. Like, people don't understand how hard that is. So for him to come in and be able to hit the ball the way he's hit it these last couple of weeks, like it's really hard to do when you're not playing day to day. So
Yeah.
I don't. You're gonna have to find some everyday at bats for that kid because he's got a lot of talent, and I don't think we've seen. I mean, we're just now starting to see the top of his potential of where
Yeah.
he could be with everyday at bats.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, coming up through the minors when he was in the Cleveland system, like he always struggled
Mhm.
against lefties, and I think this year he doesn't have a whole lot of lefties, left-handed hits, but he is still a guy that I think, yeah, I'm willing at this point to give a chance because without him, you're not where you are.
Mhm.
And look, he's going to struggle in those circumstances. There's a reason they went and got Harrison Bader and Hunter Renfroe.
Yep.
I think Harrison Bader's been a little better than the baseball card will show. I think he's made a lot of contact. It just so happens to be a lot of outs in that contact. Swung the bat pretty decent this weekend. But yeah, Sydney makes a great point right here. My favorite thing about him is how aware he's the strike zone. It's like Votto light. When
Mhm.
when he sees like a breaking ball low and away, he doesn't chase it all that often. If he does chase it, he makes some contact. But
Mhm.
this was the guy who was supposed to be your starting center fielder. He was your starting center fielder opening day. Went out there and sombreroed his first game.
Mhm.
Got sent down to the minors and figured it out. And that's been tremendous. He's just been awesome. And, we talked about it earlier. When you're the guy who hits seventh in the lineup, no matter if you're on the Reds, no matter if you're on the Braves, you're like, okay, you're one of the easier outs. He is not one of the easier outs on this team, and
No,
it's pretty
not at all.
nice.
Not at all. Yeah, Sydney brings up a great point. Like his ball to strike zone awareness is really good. Especially being like you said, being a seventh, eight hole hitter. If you've ever played baseball, you usually are counting on 7, 8, 9 being automatic outs.
Yeah.
If you're on the defense, and he's far from an automatic out. So yeah, big ups to him, man. I really like the way that he plays the game. And I like the way that he attacks every at bat and approaches every at bat for sure.
I'm going to ask you this before we get to talking about the rest of the offense today.
Mm-hmm.
Is Nick Martini a dude?
Oh
my God.
It's hard to say he's not, right? I mean,
right now, yeah.
It's hard to say he's not. I mean, that guy. He's come in and contributed mightily to the success of the back half of the season for sure. I mean, it's hard to say he's not a dude.
So, barring his last 7 games, he's only had 19 plate appearances, 19 at bats. Mm-hmm. But in that time, 263, 300, 526 slugging. He's got a homer. He's got 4 RBI. Let's break it down for a little bit more. So, in 52 at bats this year, he's got 4 tanks, 13 hits, 3 walks. He's got 10 strikeouts, but everyone strikes out in baseball now, so I'm not tripping on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not.
He's slugging 538. So again, I ask, is Nick Martini a dude?
Yeah, I think he is, man. I mean, here's the thing. Like, he's a guy. He comes in and like he has come into this lineup and given them a spark. Like he's given them a spark. When he gets his opportunities, he doesn't waste his opportunity. He's another guy that does not get as many at bats. I mean, just because of the sheer, our lineup is just loaded. He doesn't get as many at bats as he should or probably could. But whenever he's in there, he produces. He puts the bat on the ball. He's good contact. Like, yeah, I think he's a dude. I mean, the unfortunate thing for Martini is that, as far as the future of the Reds, like our lineup is just
Yeah, he
loaded.
probably won't. I can't imagine he's here in 24.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine he's going to be here, but I mean, our lineup is just stacked. So, but no, I think he's a dude. He's come in and done a great job. Like, once again, you're playing in September, you're in contention for the wild card, and he's a guy that's giving you quality at bats. I mean,
yeah, I agree. And I mean, you're starting to see a lot of these, like, you're starting to see Ellie kind of hit that wall, right? The rookie wall where he's not doing what he was at the beginning of the year. Strand is kind of hitting a little bit of that wall as well. And that's to be expected with those guys. So to have a guy like Nick Martini come in and kind of pick those guys up has been really, really nice. Now, albeit we'll see what happens in like 2 weeks when people adjust to him down the stretch of the end of the season. But who knows? Let's talk about the offense though today. We got about 10 minutes before Drew comes on. Actually, funny enough, when I put the thing out, I was like, hey, if anyone has any questions, I'm going to ask Drew. Everything was Texas, 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 Texas. Nothing was like his baseball career. So this could be a quick Q&A. Chat, we are counting on you to come up with some very fun questions. We are very much counting on you to come up with some very fun questions. So I do also want to mention real quick before we talk about the India and Joey coming back today. So we do have Drew tonight, which is something I was really excited about. If somebody knows who've been following along this season, Drew was on the show in April. Actually has been back to Great American Ballpark since. He was there for Bronson's Reds Hall of Fame induction. So I'm really excited to kind of get his thoughts about that. We're going to ask him a lot of the stuff I didn't get to ask him the last time. So the whole time he was on the show, I didn't ask about the 3 home run game at Wrigley Field in 2010. Always slipped my mind. So finally get to ask him about that. A few other things, but we're also excited that whatever questions we get from people, we're going to ask. But yes, we probably will have to start out with the Texas Longhorns question. But joining us next Sunday night is another guest I'm really excited about. Actually, one of Drew's teammates was part of the 2010 Reds. Is a co-host on the Farm to the Show podcast with former Red Chris Dickerson. Paul Janisch is going to come hang out with Ben and I next Sunday.
Oh, that's awesome.
I sent him this text.
Excited.
I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'd really like to have you on our show. And he actually sent me like this super nice message of like, thank you so much. I would really like to come on. Let's see if we can make it work. Here's my number. Shoot me a text. So I texted him and said, hey, Paul, this is Tim Daniel. And he's like, thanks for reaching out in the note. I hope everything's going well. I was like, would you want to do the 17th? He's like, I can make that work. I was like, he's very nice.
Yeah.
He's a very nice person. I mean, he always seemed like a very nice person. Don't get me wrong. But I'm excited. Rice University, I think assistant baseball coach as well, Mr. Juan. If I have those facts right, I'll have to look at his Twitter account again. But really excited to have these guys back to back. We've talked many of times how much we love the 2010 team here at the Riverfront. So I'm stoked to get him back. Let's talk about Jonathan India. So comes back today, goes Yardo, gets a stolen base today. I've been a big believer in India. I know, obviously, even with today, it does look like there's a very strong chance that this will be his last go around with the Reds. And it is what it is. We'll have that, we're going to have the conversation forever till decision's made. We're probably having that conversation till July of next year, if he's still in the team. But actually, our guest is here now, Ben.
Oh.
Yeah. Should we do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All righty. Folks, hanging out with us again for a second time. Our good friend and yours, former Cincinnati Red center fielder, Drew Stubbs. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're good, man. Thanks for coming back. It's good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. I riding high right now for my Longhorns win last night, and got the Cowboys dominating on here too. So my Texas team.
Listen. We don't have to talk about the Cowboys-Giants game right now, man. I live in Kentucky. I became a Giants fan. Don't ask me why. And I'm looking at the scores keep popping up, and we still have 0, so it's not good. It's not good on my end.
Well, I feel like being a Cowboys fan is year over year pretty torturous. So we'll take the wins and the cushions when we can get them. So.
Well, it's so funny because I put out that you were coming on again, and the thing I was like, I really want to do this Q&A, have some people ask about your time with the team and stuff like that, and every question was about Texas. So of course I do have to start. So obviously last night going to Tuscaloosa and do work, as the kids say. So I assume you're still very, very excited from a night like that.
I am. I mean, when I was in school, it truly was, looking back, kind of the golden era of Texas sports. I mean, we won a championship in baseball, and the following football season was the Vince Young USC national championship. So basketball, I think, made it to Elite Eight. For sure, one, maybe 2 times when I was in school. We had a swimming and diving. So, I mean, every sport was highly competitive and, elite. And really since 2009 in football, when we lost to Alabama, Colt McCoy went down in that Rose Bowl game in the national championship. We have been not anywhere close to where we wanted to be. And, the University of Texas is the biggest brand of college sports, but, that question keeps reappearing, like, is Texas back? Is Texas back? And, as bad as our fan base wants it to be, we just haven't quite gotten over that hump when we needed to and won the big game or got the break when we needed. And, we finally feel like we've got a roster that is talented enough. And you go into a game like that, trying to make a good showing, especially going into the you belong there. It was a great win for the program and for our guys.
We were at the Reds game last night with you were in the minors with Carlos Guevara, who while watching the Reds at GABP had his phone like this throughout the whole Texas game. So he was pretty stoked today when I woke up to all the text messages from him. So
yeah, we it's been the biggest win probably in the last 12 to 15 years of our program. So we'll see if we can build on it and get to where we're trying to go.
Yeah, because I think you mentioned basketball at that time. Was that LaMarcus Aldridge? Was he in school at that time at Texas?
Yeah, LaMarcus was a year behind me. My senior year of high school, so right before I showed up, we had TJ Ford, and they went to the Final Four. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Daniel Gibson, LaMarcus Aldridge, KD was there, which would have been my senior year. And I obviously left after 3 years got drafted by the Reds and so forth. But I went to a lot of games with him and DJ Augustine and some of those guys. And man, we had a lot of good teams back then. So it's fun to go and watch some of those games.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I know we had a lot of fun questions we wanted to ask you here today. Like I said, I really enjoyed having you on the last time, so it's great to have you back. One thing I really want to touch on, so you came back in town this summer, came in for Bronson's Team Hall of Fame induction. And how was being back in Cincinnati, man? I know we tried to meet up, it didn't work out, but did you enjoy your time back here?
I did. There were a number of guys that were former teammates. Got to see and spend some time with Sam LeCure, Daniel Ray Herrera, Jared Burton, Chris Heisey, and a few others. But just seeing some familiar faces, being around the ballpark again. My in-laws live about an hour and a half away in Lexington, so they were able to come over and see my kids. And my father-in-law, actually, the Friday we're there, we went and played golf. And it's funny, I was driving back into downtown to go to dinner, and I was telling him, I was just like, man, every time I feel like I've made this drive coming from a golf course when I was playing for the Reds on an off day back into town, I would get this feeling of anxiety that's like, okay, well, I had my 16 hours of freedom. Now, like, when do I have to be at the ballpark next or whatever else? And it was the first time that I could like actually relax and not have to worry about being somewhere and doing something and preparing to play. And so, yeah, it was great being around and even seeing a lot of the front office people and folks in the media relations department. I went down to the clubhouse, saw some of the clubhouse staff. It was great.
Did you get to see Joey?
Yeah, saw Joey on the field during batting practice, talked to him for a little bit. He seems to be in a really good place and having some fun and
Yeah.
mentoring a lot of the younger guys. So, it's been neat to watch him kind of evolve as a person and as a kind of role player on the team, from being just a head down, I'm going to be the superstar and not worry about too much else, to like, hey, I went through an injury, I'm getting older. I've got to kind of embrace some of the guys around me and kind of help lift them up and show them the ropes a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of where like I was thinking, like as far as seeing the transformation from him, because we talk about that a lot on our show about how keeping him around is a good thing because of his leadership and his being able to mentor younger players and do those things. And you see that from the outside in. How different is the Joey from the one you played with to the one you see now?
I think he's quite a bit different, and I think I saw that he was on Chris Dickerson and Paul Janish's podcast the other day, and I saw like a 30-second clip of what he was talking about, and he mentioned being around guys and learning how to be a good teammate, and he specifically said, Paul, I remember you being around, and although you were more of a role player and utility infielder, he's like, you always, not only with me but other guys, made a point to say hello and ask how you're doing. And I think Paul jokingly said, well, I had to be well liked, or maybe I wouldn't have a spot on the team. But truthfully, I mean, that's what a lot of us did. We cared for each other. Joey just grew up different than a lot of us did, and his family dynamics, kind of the location in Toronto, being in a very urban setting, and I think he, for a long time, was really searching for who he was as a person, and how that fit into a ball club. And so he just had a lot of maturity that was kind of backlogged that probably most of us had at a younger point in our lives. And everybody kind of takes form in different ways, and I think now he's a lot more comfortable in his own skin, and may not feel like he has to prove anything to anybody or be somebody that he's not. I think too, he's kind of on the back end of his career, so he's starting to reflect a little bit and soak this up. I mean, I think it's harder to enjoy playing in the big leagues and doing it at a high level when you're out to protect your livelihood and play for a contract. But he's done all that stuff now, and I think more than anything now, he's trying to help the young guys and cement his legacy.
I think when we talk about that a lot, I think too, with that point, and we'll move from the topic here, but I think a lot about you guys and how good you guys were and how talented you guys were, but still kind of learning how to win. So they go get Scott. And like, I feel like with this team, a lot of people are like, with the salary, with the contract, the fan base kind of thinks they should move on. Do you guys win without Scott Rowland? Do you guys win the Central and go to the playoffs that year?
That's a great question. I think in 2010, probably not. I actually went, me and Heisey and Jay Bruce went to Cooperstown the weekend after Bronson's induction.
Oh, cool.
And that's the first time I got to go. And, I talked to a lot of guys up there. I told Scott this, all of us. And I think Jay, Chris, and I, and many more guys on the team, Scott was not really rah guy. He wasn't a pull you aside and like give you a motivational speech kind of thing. But he was more of a guy that showed up every day, was kind of in the stage of his career that Joey's in now, was still playing at a very high level. Um, you know, he went out on the field and stayed out there for batting practice for all the groups, whereas a lot of the guys would come in and, hit, maybe take a couple ground balls, come in. They'd cut out on a lot of stuff. Scott ran out every ground ball. He did all of his early work. He basically was doing the same thing that he did early in his career. And I think as us young players watching that, we had no excuse to cut corners. We had no excuse to not run out a pop up or a weak ground ball or whatever else. He just did everything the right way. He was a pro's pro. And, when you've got one of your better players who has the hardware that he had a World Series, many Gold Gloves, all-star appearances. When you see a guy like that doing it and you're a rookie or a second or third year player, like, you have to raise your bar because you know that, the coaching staff and that locker room is not going to accept anything less. So he was a very, very, essential part of that team, even if he wasn't the one that was, the first to do an interview or to stand up in a team meeting.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, Joey's really stepped out and kind of been more open and entertaining for sure. So there's that little difference there. But, because I remember like when you guys traded for Jim Edmonds, and I remember it was like late in the year, and I understood it, but I just remember just feeling like a really weird fit. And I'm sure you as a center fielder probably really looked up to Jim Edmonds growing up, but I'm sure that was kind of like a really weird guy to have come in that late. And of course, all the drama that happened afterwards when he talked to the media, but
yeah, look, I think it's no secret that Walt Jocketty had a lot of success in St. Louis,
yeah,
and he loved his core group of guys that he had. And you look at Scott, you look at Jim, you look at Ryan Ludwig, you look at Miguel Cairo. Like, look at all the guys that
yeah,
he brought back in and around the Red system that were part of his reign in St. Louis. And like Jim specifically, when he came over, that was in 10, so my first full year in the league. I really didn't worry about like losing playing time.
right.
He was obviously, would come in and pinch hit. I'm not even sure that he was physically capable of playing a full game in center field at that point. He had an Achilles issue and some other stuff. But, you talk about different personalities, and I think we all kind of expected him to be like Scott was, and he could not be any farther from the like polar opposite. Jim was more, I love Jim. He was very good to me. He was more flamboyant. Obviously, he had the flair for the big play.
Yeah.
Had a fantastic career, but he definitely took me under his wing. And I asked him a lot of questions about, early work in batting practice, positioning, kind of instinctual things out there. And then off the field, him just taking me to dinner when we'd go on the road and so forth. So, it takes all kinds, and Jim and Scott were very, very different when it came to their day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because so I know like some of the questions I got when people were kind of talking about when you guys were in town for Bronx and stuff. This current team, and I know you just gets compared a lot to you guys when you guys were coming up. What I thought was really kind of interesting about when you guys were coming up. So you come up in 9, Joey comes up in 7, Jay comes in 8, Johnny comes up in 8. So yeah, you guys were all very young and learning how to win together, but it was like a year here, year here, year here. This group all came up like within 2 months of each other. You came up, you got to watch a few games. Do you kind of see those comparisons, those similarities between your young group and this young group?
I think so. Although, and then in 10, you think about, shortly thereafter, Frazier and Cozart and Mesoraco and Heisey and so many other guys.
Chapman,
Mike Leake and Chapman. I think up until 10, so let's just say starting like the end of 07 when Joey came up, 08 with Cueto and Bruce and some of the other guys. And then, 9, my year, the team wasn't competitive any of those years.
Right.
And then 10 was really the time where everybody had been there for a minute and we got good all of a sudden. And I think this team, although they all kind of coalesced at the same time and came into the league, like nobody expected anything this year, I don't think. And all of a sudden they're just going out and setting the world on fire and playing great baseball. And it's like, wow, here we are. We're right in the race. So I think it is similar in the sense that, although it has been compressed in the time window, you're really not competitive and you're not a factor until you are. And they just happen to be there this year. And I think, going into next year, this season will be a great learning experience from them. Hopefully they'll all be back and be healthy and then add a piece or two here or there. And, maybe have a team like we did in 10, because everybody's kind of knows where you're at, what your role is, what's going on, and ready to take it to the next level.
So you saw Ellie De La Cruz play. Obviously, very well known for being a speedster. You once stole 40 bases in a season in the big leagues. Do you think in your prime, if you guys sprinted against each other, you got a shot? I think you do. I think you could beat him.
I have I'll tell you what. So I've got a younger brother who's 3 years behind me. Very fast. He was a, sprint champion in Texas. The state of Texas. Played college baseball. Hit from the left side. So, I don't know that it's accurate, all this kind of stuff. But people would always compare us like, oh, who's faster? And I will say this. Ellie De La Cruz is a very, very fast young man. And I'm not saying that I could beat him, but my answer to all this is I've never physically lost a race to that person. So I'll take my chances on me. I still tell my brother this to this day. I'm like, I don't care what time you're in. You never beat me head to head. So
there you go.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think, because you were traded for Billy Hamilton to get time, but you were in the minor. Like when you were in the system, Billy was in spring training with you guys. Did you ever have to do sprinting against him?
Not head to head, I don't think. He was never, I don't think, in big league camp.
Okay.
So like he would come over maybe for a game here or there, but he was never like in the day-to-day mix with all of us while I was there, if I remember correctly. So again, like super fast. Don't know that I could have, actually hung with him, but it's all looking in the rearview mirror now. So
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So some of the questions we got, I want to get to. One of them wasn't necessarily a question, but was one of our regular listeners, Joey Kaditsa. He's from Toronto, but hates the Blue Jays. He's a diehard Reds fan. So he wanted to tell you that your inside the park home run against him at Great American Ballpark was one of his most favorite moments as a Reds fan, because he got to shove it in the Blue Jays fans' faces. So I just want to make sure we got that in there for him. He's a loyal listener. So
yeah, that was my only inside the Parker in the big leagues. And, it started as I remember it like it was yesterday. JoJo Reyes, left-handed pitcher, high fly ball to deep right center that, I barreled it, but I knew I missed it. So I was like, it's not going out of here. So I go into my like kind of cruise trot, like it's going to be caught on or near the warning track. I'm like just getting around first base, and it was Batista in right and maybe Corey Patterson in center, and they converge, and like right at the last minute they both like ease up because they think each other's going to catch it, and it either hits off one of their legs or the wall, and it like shoots towards center field, and then turn on the jets at that point and make it all the way around. I didn't even have to slide at home, but it's one of those that you think you're out, and then all of a sudden you're not, and you really got to go at that point.
I remember that series pretty well. I think Miguel Cairo hit a grand slam in that series in the Sunday game. That was a pretty fun one. That was great. the last time I had you on, I didn't ask you about this, and I should have. But your 3 home run game at Wrigley in 2010.
Yeah.
When you went up for the third one, did you know? Like, were you, after hitting the 2, were you like, I got this again?
No, not really. Because I hit one my first at bat, and then my second and third at bats, I think I flew out to right field or grounded out. I was 1 for 3, and then the game had stretched out where we had a 4-5 or so run lead, and then I hit the second home run in like the 6th or so inning, 7th inning maybe, and I didn't even know if honestly I would get another at bat, and by the time I did, I think it was in the 8th or 9th, and we had a double-digit run lead, I believe, and it's kind of like, man, I've got 2 homers for the day. We're going to win comfortably. It's been a great day. And Andrew Kashner, who was a rookie, he's a good buddy of mine now, comes in. I mean, he was before everybody threw 97. He threw really hard, and I remember he just kind of spun a little first pitch. I don't remember his first pitch, but he spun a little slider in there that just kind of backed up and stayed in the middle of the plate. And I mean, I hit it, and it was like way out on the Waveland Avenue, and I was just like, man, this is surreal right here. And the cool thing about it, I mean, easy one to remember for me, July 4th, 2010. So the holiday, and my parents happened to be at that game. So
no kidding.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very special moment. And I think we got on the bus, went to the airport, and flew to New York to play the Mets the next day. But so it was short-lived celebration, much like every day in the big leagues. But and then it was on to the next one.
So I had a couple here in the chat I wanted to get to. Sydney Price, one of our good friends, she asked, did you see the trade coming when you were moved to Cleveland in 2012? And was there any hard feelings at the time?
I did not see it come. Well, let me backtrack. That it was like December the 10th, plus or minus. It was the first or second week in December, right around the winter meetings, maybe just after. I was going into my arbitration year, so knew that we were going to, I was due for a little salary increase and some negotiations. And I had a down year the year before. So still had value, I think, by what I did, but offensively didn't have a great year. And it literally materialized. Like my agent and I would talk, every other day or so at that point. And, really the only thing that you would have to keep a pulse on what was going on in the off season was the MLB Trade Rumors website. And, some of the things that would pop up on there were complete like hearsay rumors.
Yeah.
Rumors at best. I don't know where they could have started, but something had popped up early that day that there was chatter between, the Indians and Reds and maybe the Diamondbacks and then normally if it flares up once, like it could be nothing and it'll pass. But there was a couple like circle backs from it throughout the day. And I remember like calling my agent and being like, hey, like, have you heard anything about this? He goes, no, but like, it's not normal for it to have this much traction. And I remember I was at dinner and I get a call from Walt Jocketty, and I get up from the table and walk out, and he goes, hey, Drew, it's Walt. I just want to let you know that, we've just made a big trade. It's involving 3 teams, sending you to the Indians, and here's the players that are involved, blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, thank you for all that you did for this organization. We feel like we're close, but we're going to make a few tweaks to our roster to try to get us over that hump. And this gave us the best chance to do it, to win right now. And he's like, wish you the best. And I mean, honestly, that felt like the first time you get broken up by a girl.
Sure.
Because, you have these, well, we just talked about it. All the guys that you knew nothing else but playing with them in that organization, wearing that uniform. You have ambitions of playing your whole career there. And then, it's like the rug gets pulled out from under you. You got to start with a new culture, a new team, a new group of teammates. And man, it was tough. And I don't think I had ill will toward the Reds. I was a little bitter that, they weren't giving me a chance to keep going what we had just, in 10 and then 12, I really thought we had a chance to win the World Series that year.
Yeah.
And I was going to be exiting that team. But, you learn real quick that it's a business, and went on to Cleveland and that was that. But yeah, you go through your career, and then looking back is your best chance to kind of reflect on what happened and to truly evaluate it. And I mean, I get it. They have to make tough decisions all the time, but it did materialize pretty quick. It really did.
This is literally a joke, so I'm just taking this for satirical reasons. But when you were traded, Billy Hamilton came up and wore number 6.
Yeah.
Were you mad about that? Because there was that whole joke. There was that thing, Brandon. Did you hear about this?
No.
So when they traded Brandon to Atlanta, Scooter Gennett, they signed Scooter Gennett, and Scooter Gennett wears 4. And apparently, he talks to the media, and he's like, "I feel like they really disrespected me giving my number to somebody else."
Brandon was very outspoken with the media. If it wasn't evidenced by the altercation with the Cardinals that he incited himself, so that doesn't surprise me. I mean, if I would have gone to Cleveland, and I think somebody was either Lou Marson maybe had number 6, and if I would have asked for it and stepped no, a number's a number for me. And, once you're gone from a team, unless you're like a Derek Jeter type where you've worn that number for 15 or 20 years, maybe when Joey retires in a year or two, and, probably don't want to give his number away right away. Not to say that nobody will ever wear it again, but I think that's a little bit of a stretch to feel disrespected. So
I know. It's always given me a laugh, because then he, when the Braves moved him to the Angels, it was like he was only in Atlanta for half a season. It was one of those things. I'm not here to talk bad about Brandon. It's not my intent. He's just a guy that you can always get a laugh at when you look back at some of the things he did. He said getting traded from the Braves to the Angels was harder than being traded from the Reds. And I get he's from Atlanta, but also I was like, come on, man. Let's be realistic here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he was just a very emotional person, in a sense that, you get asked that kind of question shortly after it's happened and it's still fresh. And, you wear your emotions on your sleeve sometimes, and you say some things that may or may not be accurate, even the way you feel about it. So I think all of us can take things with a grain of salt that people say from time to time.
Do we lose Tim?
Maybe so.
Let's see here. Yeah, we might have lost him. Oh. So Drew, I do have a couple questions while we wait for Tim to. How involved are you currently in baseball? Do you get a chance to watch a whole lot of games? I mean, I know that you have a family, and do you watch a whole lot of baseball still? Or are you still involved in the current product?
Not really. And I think this year, coming back to Cincinnati, going to Cooperstown, I probably watched more games and kept up with what's going on more this year than the 5 or so years that have been, since I've been out of the game. Mm-hmm. I have watched every postseason in bits and pieces and most of the World Series games and so forth. But, it's not that I have any animosity toward the game, but mm-hmm. I just think that, some guys continue to keep up with it pretty closely, especially if they're going to stay in it and maybe, coach or scout or have a, media outlet or whatever else. But for me, I think when you're eating and sleeping and breathing it every day, and you go in the clubhouse and you're not only playing a game, but every TV in the clubhouse has a baseball game on.
Yeah.
It's just like kind of you've had enough for a little bit. And I think as time passes, I mean, I saw it this year, getting some interest and seeing some new faces with the Reds and keeping up with some stuff. I've got a son that turned 3 yesterday. So as he gets older, if he takes a liking to baseball, I could see myself kind of diving back in. But for the moment, not that involved.
Okay. Cool. So you've got a son that's 3. That's he's has he shown any inkling to wanting to swing a bat? Has he shown any want to take ground balls? I mean, I know you've already said you probably won't push him towards that. Whatever he wants to do, he's going to do. But has he shown any inkling in that at all?
Not. I mean, a little bit, but not too much. I've also got a daughter that's 5, and she's in kindergarten this year. So,
oh yeah, awesome.
We've kind of done some youth soccer stuff. I mean, she's done dance. I feel like maybe it's their personality where, if it's a golf or, hitting off a baseball tee or whatever else, like they'll want to do it for about 5 minutes and then they're diverting to something else. So,
yeah, absolutely.
We'll see what becomes of that. But, I just want to give them every opportunity to, whether it's music or sports or whatever else, like here it all is. Tell me what you want to do. And for me, that's kind of what my parents did. And I played a lot of different things until I graduated high school, and baseball was always my favorite and what I hope to continue to do. And it worked out, but I know that's not the case for everybody. So
that's awesome.
Well, sorry about that. My wife knocked the internet out. She's gonna be very mad that she says I said that, but
I was gonna say, yeah, she's gonna hear that. You know that,
right? Get a couple here. So, did you ask the Mr. Juan question yet?
No, I did not. We were just talking about family and kids and stuff like that.
That's more fun. Yeah. Especially now that I have one, I'm like, I totally get it.
Yeah.
So we had here from Mr. Juan. He said, "What was draft day like? Did you know it was the Reds all the way, or were there other teams that were possibilities?"
So obviously the draft has kind of moved around. In 2006, I had just ended my, didn't know it was going to be over, but was pretty sure just ended my college career at Texas. We lost to Stanford in the regional in Austin, which was very, very disappointing. Playing in the finals the previous 2 years at Omaha. It's kind of like we expected nothing less than to be back there. Came up short and lost. And so I remember the draft, I think, was on a Monday. And my parents had gone back home, gone to work. And I was at my house that I was living in for college. I had 3 other roommates, and 2 of their parents were there with us. So we were all just kind of huddled up. I knew about the time the draft started that the Reds, who had the 8th pick, had called my agent. And I think that, they didn't know the exact order going up, but we were pretty sure that the 7 teams leading up to the Reds had kind of zeroed in on somebody other than me. And so they called and said, hey, slot was whatever it was. And they kind of said, hey, would you do a pre-draft deal, like agree to a number less than slot? And, knowing that like the Orioles, I think, had the next pick, and the Rangers were 2 picks behind that or 3 picks behind that. So we're like, okay, well, if they're offering this, like, we feel like we could go a pick later or 3 picks later and get the same amount of money they're offering, which would be more in line with slot. And so we said, no, we're not taking that. And they said, well, would you counter? I think we countered, which was kind of in the middle of where the slot was from the year before and what they came in at. And they said, okay, we would do that. And so it was basically agreed upon, like right as the draft was starting, that if I was there at 8, they were going to take me, already knew the number, all that kind of stuff. So that's really when I knew. And obviously you're still kind of like holding your breath until the pick is called out. But it was a little anticlimactic when my name actually got called. But I'll take it. It was better than sitting there and white knuckling it.
Because before you went to Texas, you were drafted, right? Where you decided to go to school?
Yeah, I was drafted in the 3rd round by the Astros. And again, we got together as a family, and I basically said, well, I need $1 million to sign, or I'm going to go to school, and I'm not taking a dollar less than that. Like, I want to go to school. If I get that amount of money, like, that'll change my life, and I need to do it. But yeah, they kind of went back and forth, and since I was a dual sport recruited athlete, they could spread the money out over a little bit of time, which could help their bottom line, I guess. And I mean, it drug on for a few weeks, and we're kind of like looking around, wondering what's going on. And what I was told was Drayton McClain, who owned the team at the time, eventually stepped in and said, look, we can't pay a 3rd round pick a little bit more than, I think the slot was like $450 or so for that pick. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we can't pay that much over the slot. So they offered me more in line with that. And I told them, well, thanks, but no thanks. This just made my decision easier, and I'm going to school. So, but I say it all the time. I mean, if things wouldn't have worked out the way they did, I mean, got to be a part of a national championship team, got a great degree. I wouldn't be living in Austin here today had it not been for school. And then, the bonds and the friendships you make while you're there, I wouldn't trade those for anything. So.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of one we got from David Barron, and this is one I was kind of top on it. He asked, what was better, hitting a homer or a great defensive play?
I think it depends on the situation. For instance, like in the College World Series when we won in 2005, in the semifinal game against Baylor, I think it was the 8th inning. It was a tie game, and I came in and made a diving catch, and Reed Breeze, who is Drew Brees' younger brother, was playing for Baylor, and there was one out. He thought the ball was going to, lob into center field, and he basically broke from second after taking a few shuffle steps, thinking that he was going to try to score. And I dive and catch it and double him off of second base. Inning over, we end up hitting a walk-off home run an inning later to win the game. So, like, that in my mind, situationally, was probably the best defensive play I've ever made, which was really cool. But, on an even playing field, I would say hitting a home run probably trumps that, for me at least.
I was going to ask, because as a speedster, as a guy I know you did both of these, what was more fun? Your multi-home run games or multi-stolen base games?
I would say home runs, just because the multi-stolen base came around a lot more than the multi-home run games. So I would probably cherish those a little bit more, but both great.
What was that like when you're the fast guy on first base? Like when you know that pitcher's like, their whole scouting report is do not let him get to second, whatever you do. Like for you, was that like fun for you, like knowing you could kind of play with pitchers like that?
Absolutely. I think you're seeing it's great for the game, but the rules that are enacted this year,
Yeah.
I would have loved to be, a young 20-something-year-old with fresh legs out there, just pick over a couple times and then you can just hit the green light. But, more than anything, I competed with myself, and I was just like, man, if this pitcher is not if he's a 1.3 second or higher to the plate, I don't care who's back there. Like, they're not throwing me out. And, Billy Hatcher and I would kind of, work on things pregame. We would work on strategy in game. We would look for little kind of nuances and things that the pitcher would do. If he would do stuff with his feet when he was going home or picking over, vice versa. But the biggest thing was once you were a known threat and everybody in the stadium knew that you were looking to run, I think the guys at the plate, when I was hitting in front of Joey or whoever it was, like they were licking their chops because they were more likely to make a mistake because they're worried about keeping me close to the base. And they're slide stepping and trying to rush their delivery to the plate, and it creates more mistakes for them a lot of times.
Yeah, because I think about I went to quite a few games. That's where you had those games. It was always fun. When the ballpark, the atmosphere picked up when you would be in scoring position. So that was always something that kind of was remembered. This one's going to be, someone asked me to ask you this. What do you remember about the 18-inning game in Philadelphia?
Oh, not much.
Okay. Wilson Valdez got the win for the Phillies, the second baseman that started that day.
Yeah. Yeah, he ended up being a Reds teammate for a year, I think.
Yeah, he did. 2012.
I forgot. Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about that one. But I mean, 18 innings. It's more like the war of attrition at that point. So, last man standing usually wins.
Mm-hmm. Halladay started that game for them. I remember that. And I think you guys chased him in the sixth. Little did we know that would be 12 innings later. But that was kind of funny. All right. Well, we got a few in here. We'll get these quick for you, and we'll let you get back to hanging out with your loved ones. But these were some fun ones here. When you were playing in center field, who was your most favorite pitcher to see you toe the mound? Because you get some times there where you're sitting there and you got some downtime. Who was the most fun pitcher to watch kind of pitch from center field on a day-to-day basis?
I'll give you two answers. My job was really easy when Cueto was rolling, because especially in a lineup full of right-handed hitters, he would be buzzing those little two-seamers and it'd be just weak ground ball to short or third base after weak ground ball, and I could just stand back there and just watch him work and carve him up. Dusty would always say when Bronson would be on the mound, he would have a feeling, be like, hey man, we'd go on the road somewhere. He's like, hey, I need you to get a good night's rest. Bronson's pitching tomorrow. And obviously Bronson largely pitched to contact and a lot of fly balls, flipping the curveballs in and stuff. So he was always fun to play behind because you usually did get a lot of fly ball action. And just the artistry that he pitched with the different arm slots and the different speeds and spins and all that kind of stuff. That was fun to be behind.
Yeah, I remember Cueto was always a blast. Chapman had to be interesting to pitch behind because he struck everybody out too, I assume. So
yeah, the best thing about Cueto was that he worked you look at him and Volquez, right? I mean,
yeah,
they kind of get lumped together because they had similar pitching styles, similar stuff, but as a defender, they were night and day to be behind. Volquez always threw a lot of pitches. He worked kind of slow. He would work deep counts, and Johnny would just get the ball and go. And he would fill up the strike zone, and here it is, hit it kind of thing. And, man, when you got somebody, Leak worked really fast and efficient. And it's even if you're giving up hits or homers or whatever else, when you can stay on your toes and know that the guy is trying to attack the strike zone and working fast, it keeps the defense in a better rhythm. So those guys were always a lot of fun to be behind.
Wow. Coolest uniform in the pros between your minors and major leagues, because the best hat you got to wear in that time frame.
Would this be a novelty hat or just a day-to-day?
It could be whatever you want. It was cool when you guys wore the 2011s in that Philly series, and then they wore the 1990 jerseys.
Yeah, those were cool. I guess we had a similar hat to what we wore day to day. Man, that's a tough one. It was kind of before, now they're doing the specialty stuff much more often. I remember, I think that same series you're talking about where we wore the 90s stuff. We played the Pirates, and they wore the old black hat that had the
Yeah.
yellow rings around it. So those were kind of, I didn't wear it, but it's pretty cool to play against. So.
Yeah. Well, you played for the Isotopes, right?
Yeah.
Those hats were sweet.
Yep. And I was there maybe 3 weeks or so. And they got the little like physics atoms flying around or whatever. So interesting stuff you see in the minor leagues over time.
Yeah, that's always kind of makes me laugh. Like the Bats do a lot of like Avengers night, and all like everyone like dressed like their jerseys look like Captain America. I
Yeah.
dig that stuff.
Yeah.
Especially
Chattanooga
funny.
lookouts were kind of cool. I mean, when I was in
Yeah.
Double, the two eyes that are in the middle of the sea, like that one.
Did you hear they're getting a new stadium finally?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. My cousin lives down there. He actually sent me a hat. I wore it on the show not too long ago. I was in Louisville this summer. I went to a Bats game. I was actually covering the game, and I saw they still had you up on like their banner of previous players, like in the suites area. It was pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah. Had some good memories in Louisville. I guess
you were there like 2 weeks.
Yeah. No, what's that?
You were there like 2 weeks.
2 weeks in 2008, and I spent most of the year in 2009 there. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So I got called up in August to Cincinnati. So I played most of the 2009 season in AAA with the Bats. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think we were there a short time. What's the other one? So we had a couple here. Favorite memory as a member of the Reds?
A snapshot was the Jay Bruce walk-off home run to clinch the division in 2010. That was fun.
Yeah. When you guys were smoking cigars and someone called the authorities on you guys?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of wild stuff going on that night. But, just first time any of us had ever been in that position to win a division, first time in 15 or so years the Reds had won, and to kind of cap it off in that fashion was, 2012, I think we kind of boat raced the division and won on a Chapman strikeout or something. That was like, oh, great, let's go celebrate. But that was a great night.
Mr. Juan asked, the craziest thing you saw Adam Dunn do?
Well, I actually didn't get to play with Dunn. We were in spring training together a little bit. And then by the time I got up, he was out of there. So I actually spent more time with Dunner off the field, in the off season, since he lives in Houston. And he'll come into Austin for a Texas football game here or there because of his background too. I've heard a lot of stories, but didn't get to witness a whole lot of them myself.
And then this is a actual baseball related question from Scott. With today's technology, do you feel MLB should restructure how balls or strikes are called and/or challenged?
It's a hard question because we have all this incredible technology that can get so precise with everything. And, as you watch NFL and college football, like these balls that are hitting the ground that for years and years and years are a catch or not a catch, and then they can zero it in and reverse it. And in baseball, the tags where, if a guy beats the throw, even if he gets off the bag or whatever else, he's safe. And it's just so microscopic with how dialed in they can get to the footage of everything. At some point you're like, okay, well, do we want this to be baseball as we know it with the human element of human error and calling balls and strikes? Or do you want to have a digitized strike zone tailored to every hitter, whether you're Jose Altuve or Aaron Judge, and do it that way? It's, in my opinion, it's something to where like you have to decide what's most important to use the technology with. And then the rest of it, just leave it alone and chalk it up to like baseball is a game of imperfection and human error, as long as it's not blatant human error. And that's kind of what keeps the nuance of the game what it is. So, it'll be interesting to see how things progress as we move on, these next 5-10 years in the game.
The last question we have here before we wrap up this, Drew. what was cooler? First time seeing yourself on a baseball card or first time seeing yourself in a video game?
I think a video game because I mean, I'm not really, haven't been gaming for a number of years now, but growing up, playing Ken Griffey's baseball on Super Nintendo and then getting into the PlayStation game where, you're playing a lot of MLB The Show or whatever else. Like I remember the first time that I populated on that thing, I was just like, wow, I've made it. I've made it now. So that's my answer.
Did they scan you guys for that? Because tattoos are never in the game, but the faces always look really good.
Yeah, we didn't do like the, I remember the Tiger Woods golf game back then. They would have the little nodes all over, like the bodysuit, and you take your movements. But we didn't do any of that stuff. Like they might have in spring training when we did kind of our media headshot days and all that kind of thing. They might have, gotten some of that facial recognition through that, but I don't really remember, to be honest.
Nice.
But,
perfect.
Yeah, they were pretty good for a while there.
Yeah. You also raked in that game. Like I always hit really well with you in that game. So I appreciate all the times I beat my friends because of Drew Stubbs. So
glad I could help.
Yeah. Well, Drew, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. We're going to go and wrap up this week's edition of Late Night Reds. Thank you all so much for hanging out with Ben and I. Have a good night, and we'll see you all next week with
thank you, Drew.
Drew's former teammate, Paulianish. He's coming to join us next week.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.
Take it easy, everybody.